So as I'm talking to him, I'm completely unaware of the fact that the under the gun player had raised to 6,000. I don't even notice that he has cards, and I just assume that it's just me against the big blind.
All in? You said all in. All in? Yeah, he is.
It wasn't until the big blind folded and the under the gun player asks for a count that I realized the foolish and careless mistake I just made. So that happened on day 2 of one of the biggest events at this year's WSOP, the Millionaire Maker, which attracted a massive field of thousands of players, all competing for a 7-figure first prize and a WSOP bracelet. Will I somehow survive after getting it all in by mistake, or will it cost me my tournament life? Let's rewind to the start of day 1 to see how it all unfolded. Starting stack was 25k, and I jumped in at level 3 with blinds at 200, 300. Over the next couple levels, I managed to build it up to around 46,000. There weren't any huge pots, I just steadily chipped up by winning a lot of smaller ones. Then at the 300, 500 blind level, I got moved to a new table, and this is when this hand happened. So I'm under the gun +2 with ace-10 offsuit and raise it up to 1,000. Now the player on the button, who was short stacked with only 5,500 behind, thinks about it for quite a while before deciding to make the call. The small blind folds, big blind calls as well. Wasn't quite sure what to make of the button's call. Perhaps he had a pocket pair that would normally shove all in if everybody folded to him, but facing my early position raise, decided to call and see a flop first. It comes king of diamonds, king of spades, 9 of spades. The big blind checks. I am holding the ace of spades here, but I am a bit concerned about the button, as I'm still thinking that his calling range has to be quite strong pre-flop. I decide to check, and the button decides to bet 700. The big blind folds, and here with ace-10 having 2 overcards to the 9, with the backdoor spade draw, and facing a small bet, I put in the call. The turn comes the 8 of hearts, not the turn I was looking for. I check, and now the big blind decides to check back. The river is the 6 of spades. In this specific situation, I don't think my ace high has enough showdown value. I'm trying to think of what hand would he bet the flop and then check back the turn with. If he does have those middling pocket pairs, he could definitely have pocket 8s and pocket 6s, but that's only a few combos, and he could still definitely have all the other pocket pairs under the 9. Either way, I was quite unsure what to put him on. Holding the 8 of spades did make me feel a little bit more confident. In the end, I do decide to put him all in, hoping he wasn't trapping with a big hand. He beats me to the pot and turns over queen 8 of spades. So now seeing that he had turned a pair of 8s makes a lot of sense on why he checked the turn. But I definitely didn't put him on this type of hand, calling preflop with such a short stack. Blinds are up to 300, 600. I'm going to cut off with ace-10 of diamonds. Everybody folds to me, and I raise it up to 1,300. There's a dead button this hand, so I'm essentially the button. The small blind decides to 3-bet to 3,200. You have how much behind? 50? 2 reds? So after counting his stack, he had about 14,000. With a suited ace in position, facing a relatively small raise, I decide to make the call for 1,900 more. The flop comes ace of clubs, 4 of clubs, ace of hearts. The small blind checks, holding trip aces. This is an above average flop for me. I'm definitely not checking. I decide to bet 3,000. Of course, there's always the possibility my opponent has ace king, ace queen, and has me crushed. But when he checks this flop, he could also have a ton of other value hands here that would call a bet. And he doesn't take too long before putting in the call. The turn is the deuce of clubs. Small blind checks again. Now with 3 clubs on the board, I'm hoping he has a high club in his hand. He has only 8,200 behind. I decide to go all in. He doesn't look happy about it, but does put in the call. And he ends up turning over ace-6 of spades. So quite an unlucky flop for him. My hand holds, and that's GG for him. Can't fault him for the way he played this one. 3-betting the ace-6 of spades from the small blind is pretty standard here. I could definitely be opening light in this position. Just a cooler situation. Soon after that, I get it all in against the short stack again, which is the same player that I had doubled up earlier with the ace-10. This time I have ace-6 against his ace-9. Quite annoyingly, he gets another full courtesy double up from me. This next one happens at the 501k blind level. I'm in the big blind and look down at ace-10 suited. I seem to be getting dealt a lot of ace-10s that day. If we're keeping score, so far I've won one and lost one. This time it folds around to the cutoff, who puts in a raise to 2,000. The small blind to my right thinks about it for a bit and decides to 3-bet to 6,100. In this configuration, with the small blind 3-betting the cutoff, the ranges can be quite wide. I think this provides me a good opportunity to go all in, so I do shove for 26,000. And as I suspected, they were both quite light as they both snap fold. The blinds are up 1,000, 1,500. I'm on the button, and guess what hand I look down on? That's right, ace 10 again. Everybody folds to me, and this time I raise it up to 3,000. The small blind folds, and the big blind makes the defend. The flop comes ace of diamonds, 6 of clubs, 4 of clubs. The big blind checks. I make a c-bet of 3,000. Now the big blind decides to check raise to 8,000. I glanced over at his stack. After he check raised, he only had around 20k behind. If he did happen to flop 2 pair in the big blind, I'm gonna need some help, but with top pair here against his remaining stack, I think I just have to put it in here. He snap calls and turns over the bad news as he did flop 2 pair.
Holy shit.
Luckily, I get majorly bailed out with running 8s on the turn and river, counterfeiting his 2 pair. A very pleasant surprise.
Oh, I'll never know.
Huh?
I'll never know because of you. Ask him to tell me the hand you played.
Oh,
He said after the tournament you will tell me.
now it's a good time to chase after him, ask him again.
I'm not gonna ask him.
Out of the 4,526 entrants for this flight of the Millionaire Maker, I'm one of the 1,218 that survived day 1. It's been a roller coaster of a day, but I managed to bag 55k, a little more than double the starting stack. Let's see if I can run it up on day 2. After 4 jam-packed day 1 flights, all the survivors were finally under one roof for day 2. Blinds are starting at 1,000, 2,000. Let's get right to it. So right when I sat down, one of the first hands, I'm in the small blind with Jack 9 offsuit. Everybody folds around to me. It's just me and the big blind left. I decide to put in the call. So obviously the guy made an honest mistake. He thought I raised the 5k with the red chip. Just remember that it's always good to clarify with the dealer if you're not sure of the action in these type of situations. This next one, I'm under the gun and look down at the beautiful pocket aces. It's nice to see them, as I think it's the first time I got them this tournament. I raise it up to 5,000. Now let's see if I can get some action on them. It folds all the way around to the last player in the big blind. And just when I thought that I was going to get no action, he decides to 3-bet to 17k. I instantly shove, thinking that he's pot committed, as I only have 50k total. But his cards fly into the muck as fast as my chips went in. My guess is that he had a trash hand with a high card blocker and was planning to raise fold. Unfortunately for him, I had the goods. Blinds are up now to 1,500, 3,000. I'm in the cutoff and look down at 2 red 9s. Everybody folds to the player on my right in the hijack, and he raises to 7k. He had only 30k behind. I decide to 3-bet to 15k. Both the blinds get out of the way, and he very quickly puts the rest of his chips in. Of course I make the call, and to my surprise and disappointment, he turns over pocket aces. Lots of aces going around the table today. His aces hold. Losing this one put a dent into my stack, but not too damaging. I still have 65k to work with. Just gotta be glad that he wasn't deeper. In this hand, I'm in the small blind with ace 4 offsuit. As everybody folds, I'm just chatting with the player across the table. He asked me whether I enjoy cash games or tournaments more. Decisions are more interesting when you can't reload.
You can't what?
When you can't reload.
Yeah.
So as I'm talking to him, I'm completely unaware of the fact that the under the gun player had raised to 6,000. I don't even notice that he has cards, and I just assume that it's just me against the big blind. All in? It wasn't until the big blind folded and the under the gun player asks for a count that I realized the foolish and careless mistake I just made. When I shoved, I assumed I was shoving against the big blind, who I saw had less than 30k, but the under the gun player was our table's chip leader, and so of course now I had to sit there and pretend that I intentionally wanted to shove against his raise in order to not give away how light my shove was. Super awkward. This is so bad, man. I didn't even know you raised. I honestly, I thought it was small guys
you
who's
thought it
playing.
was
Yeah.
just him? Oh.
It's not your fault, but I was talking to you, and I saw everybody fold, so tilted. So he ended up calling my shove with ace queen for a total of 65,000, which with his big stack is a very reasonable call. His hand held, and all I can do is blame myself as this hand happened about 100 players away from the money. That was definitely one of the most careless mistakes I've ever made playing in a poker tournament. Perhaps some of you have done something similar at some point. So if there's one expensive lesson from this hand, it's that if you're going to be having a conversation at the table when you're in a hand, you have to stay locked in and pay close attention to the action. If you're someone that can't talk comfortably and play at the same time, it's probably best to save the conversation until after the hand is over. But as tilting as it was to bust out like this, I realized that the fastest way to get over it is to register for the next event. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.